This is episode 37 with Bailey Richert.
Welcome to the Quarterlife Comeback Podcast, the show that empowers you to become the hero of your life's journey. With your host, Brian Tier.
Hey guys and girls, welcome back to another episode of the Quarterlife Comeback Podcast, episode 37 today, and I am very excited to be welcoming back a good friend and past guest, Bailey Richert. Now, in case you missed our previous episode 25, Bailey spoke about how to overcome a life crisis by creating a business based on your experience and your skills. In this episode, we catch up with Bailey and what she's been up to since then. In particular, Bailey launched an amazing project in her own business, a virtual summit. Now, I've been quietly putting my own summit together behind the scenes, more on that soon. But I wanted to get Bailey on the show to speak about how this kind of project can be an amazing way to boost your own business, especially if you're just getting started. Also, Bailey and I are hosting a webinar teaching you how to do exactly this in your own business, and you can find out more about that and register at briantier.com/webinar. Now that's going live in exactly a week from today if you're listening to this on release date. So November 14th is when you're going to want to come hang out with us. And Bailey's going to drop some really cool knowledge bombs and some awesome giveaways in that webinar. So again, that's briantier.com/webinar. And in this episode, you're going to learn what is a virtual summit and the benefits of hosting one, how a summit differs from a conventional podcast, the most unexpected results that came from Bailey's summit, the biggest challenges involved in hosting one, why you are already equipped to put on your own summit, and how to connect with high-profile speakers in your industry. Now, as usual, you can get the links and resources we mentioned in this episode at briantier.com/037. But for now, let's go hang out with Bailey. Welcome back, everyone, and a big welcome once again to Bailey Richert. Bailey, welcome back to the Quarterlife Comeback Podcast.
Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, now I mentioned to you via email that I've been wanting to do repeat interviews or episodes with some of the guests that seem to really resonate with my audience, and I couldn't be more excited to have you as the first one. Your episode, it was episode 25, which I'll link up in the show notes. It's really proved to be really popular, and I think it obviously speaks to something that 20-somethings and quarterlifers are curious about, and sort of starting a business on their own terms and a life on their own terms in a broader sense. So I might explore sort of diving into that topic more in future. But before we get into anything, let's do the human thing. And how have you been since last time, and what have you been up to?
I've been great. Yeah, thanks for asking. I've just been really busy working on my next big project, the Virtual Summit School, which is launching here in December. And that's really been taking up all of my attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I saw some pictures of you on a family vacation. And I suppose that's one of the kind of benefits of creating a business in this sort of way.
Yeah, we actually, I took my entire family down to Disney World, Florida for the week. My mom had never been before, and she was super excited to be able to go there. And like you were just saying, it's so great because with my business being location independent, I have that kind of lifestyle freedom where, I don't have to ask permission from some boss in order to go or request the time off. I can simply do it if I choose to. So it was really great. I was able, to run my business from the hotel Wi-Fi, and it all worked out.
Is it kind of, because, obviously when you create a business like this, sort of a lifestyle business or a freedom business or whatever you want to call it, you can work from anywhere and any time. But do you find that it's easy to get sucked in and want to work all the time?
Yeah, it can really be difficult. You definitely have to set up some boundaries. That work-life balance is something that I think all entrepreneurs struggle with, whether you have a freedom business or not. But it's definitely difficult whenever you are doing the travel and work thing, especially if you're traveling with other people. So I don't always travel with others, and definitely not my entire family. So this was kind of a unique situation. A lot of times I travel by myself. in the situations when I travel by myself, I think that it's easier for me to get sucked in to want to work all the time. But whenever I'm with other people, I want to spend my time with them. So then it's the opposite problem. I actually have to force myself to sit down at my computer and make sure that I'm doing my work. But I think the truth is that it also comes down to scheduling. And I know that sounds a little counterintuitive when you think, well, you're traveling, you're on vacation, but you really actually do have to have a schedule, an itinerary, say, okay, I'm going to do these activities with these people from this time to this time, but then I'm carving out this chunk of time in the evening or morning or what have you, and I'm going to work on my business, and that's just the end of it. You really have to be dedicated and spend that time accordingly.
Especially when you've got Mickey and friends calling your name, right?
Yes, exactly.
All right, so Bailey, you mentioned the project you've been working on, Virtual Summit School, which we can link up in the show notes. But just to take it back a bit, Summit was actually the way that I first came across you and your work, because you put together the Infopreneur Summit. And then someone sent me to that, and I kind of followed and saw what you were doing, and the rest is history. And I'm actually putting together a summit of my own, which I haven't really announced to my listeners yet, but probably the beginning of next year, there's something exciting coming up in the sort of quarter life space. But for people who maybe aren't familiar with online summits and that sort of thing, I wonder if you could just explain, what is a summit?
Absolutely. Well, a virtual summit is basically an online conference. So if you think about a real conference that you might want to attend, you find the sales page online and it shows you all the speakers that are going to be there. You buy a plane ticket, you travel to a hotel in a different city for a weekend or, a week. You go, you listen to the speakers, absorb the information, kind of network with other people, then you go home. Well, a virtual summit, it's the same concept, only you don't have to go anywhere. So it's all of the convenience of learning from experts, only the attendees actually get to watch those interviews and those lectures from the experts on their computers at their own convenience. And for the host, the infopreneur or the online business owner who might be putting that summit together, there are so many benefits from doing an event like this. And I can speak to that because since I hosted my own summit this summer, I have received so many of those benefits. One of them is growing your email list. So actually attracting, upwards of thousands of people if you do the promotions correctly to your summit and getting them involved in your business and on your email list, selling all access pass memberships and earning revenue in that way. Also positioning yourself as an expert. Whenever you are the host of an event like this, people automatically see you as on the same level as the guest experts that you have. So it really establishes your authority in your niche and convinces people that you are the go-to person in that field. And I mean, you certainly obviously reap the benefits of getting to build those relationships with all of the guest speakers and influencers that you ask to be a part of your event, which I think is honestly one of the biggest benefits, not just because you get to be their friend and you really grow your own personal community, but you can also leverage those relationships for business partnerships in the future. And so a virtual summit is a really incredible event for growing your business and making an impact in your niche in a short amount of time.
Yeah. Now, how would that what would be the sort of benefits of hosting a summit versus just a regular sort of podcast interview series type of thing?
Absolutely. Great question. Well, you can kind of think of a summit as is the same thing as a podcast, only it's a condensed version, right? So with a podcast, you interview every guest and maybe you put out a new show once a week or once every 2 weeks. With a summit, you're going to be collecting a group of influencers and guest speakers and recording the interviews with them. And maybe you have 30 or 40 speakers, and then you're going to be releasing all of that content in a very short amount of time. So instead of releasing that content, once a week or however long for the course of a year or something, you're actually going to be releasing all of those interviews over the course of a few days to maybe a week. And so I would say that it's different in the sense that Your promotion about it is very different, of course. So instead of saying, we have this ongoing show, you say, we have a limited time event. It's only going to be available for a short period of time. So you have that scarcity element and sort of that urgency, which encourages people to sign up and enroll. In fact, the interviews for the summit, the free interviews, are only being broadcast for a short period of time. Then they get taken down. And the reason you want to do that is to encourage people to buy your all access pass, where they can get lifetime access to a membership site where all of those interviews are. Whereas a podcast, you would put out this content for free and it just stays free online. So there's a big difference there. And I think also, you're approaching a virtual summit from the perspective of an event. And so whenever you promote it and whenever you work with your guest speakers, you're basically all trying to hype up this event for an entire month before it goes live. And then after that, it's over, it's said and done. And so with a podcast, though, it's more of a slow play. It's building that authority. It's reaching people one at a time with every single interview you put out. So the marketing strategies and the business strategies are quite different.
Yeah, that's a really cool distinction, and also the sort of the upsell opportunities from hosting a summit versus a podcast. The all access pass and a course if you have something like that. And just from a viewer or attendee point of view, I think the biggest thing is probably being able to learn so much in your niche from really high caliber guests and experts, with like a fraction of the price tag compared to if you had to actually go to a talk by one of those people. So that's also really cool. So what has been, you mentioned the network and obviously the financial benefit and that sort of stuff. But what's been like the biggest benefit that you've seen from hosting the Infopreneur Summit?
Well, I think that the biggest thing has really been the fact that through the summit, I was able to grow my email list by over 1,000 people. Really, it took me 90 days to put the summit together, and then the summit lasted for about a week. And in the month that I promoted the summit, through that 1 week of the summit, I was able to grow my email list by over 1,000 people. And it's not that number that really matters so much, the fact that I added 1,000 people to my list. But the reason that I think that has impacted my business the most is because of what has come out of that. I have added 355 people of those 1,000 to my Facebook group. So I have a much more engaged Facebook group now. Those 1,000 people respond to my email newsletters significantly more, and I'm able to get more engagement from them. I have a bigger pool of people to survey whenever I'm looking to put out new products. I have more people on my list to buy my products. So, if I'm pitching something, then I have a greater possibility that I'm going to have more customers. And so it's not that number itself, but it's the business and the outcomes that come out of growing my business, a community in that way. I'd say that's by far the biggest thing that the summit did for me.
Yeah, and like for people listening who maybe aren't either like clued up or just not interested in online business, 1,000, they call it like 1,000 true fans. So if you can get 1,000 people who really take interest in what you're doing and resonate with what you're doing, it's kind of considered like that's a sustainable number and a good target to hit. And the other thing, like you said, it's not about the number. It's about like the quality of those numbers too. So you don't just want 1,000 people and, 2 of them actually click your links. If you can get 1,000 people and they're actually doing things and interacting and spreading your message, then you've hit it. So yeah, that's
Absolutely.
really cool. That's really cool that the summit kind of brought that for you. And there's probably also things you can't track. Like if someone buys a program of yours, but they originally saw you from the summit and then came back at a later stage. It's like those indirect effects as well. So that's also pretty cool.
Absolutely. And, it's funny because I find out all the time that people that I thought had found my community from another way ended up finding me from my summit, or they'll email me and they'll say, oh, I didn't know about you until your summit, And so I'm seeing the results of it even now. And it's funny because I actually still have the summit page live so that people can go and check it out. And if they do register, it simply tells them, well, the event's over, but you can still buy an all access pass because it's an evergreen product. And people are still signing up for the summit, even though it's over.
Yeah, that's so great. And that's what you want, right?
Yes,
kind of like
absolutely.
passive income. So what was like one or two of the most unexpected things that happened as a result of this? Something that that you didn't really expect to come out of the Infopreneur Summit?
Sure. Well, one of the things is that I got featured on the Side Hustle podcast. So that was kind of interesting. I had always respected Nick Loper, who is the host of that podcast. And I reached out to him because I wanted to ask him to be on my summit, but he declined because he had some other obligations going on in his business at that time. And I think he just had a baby. And so instead, he asked me if I wanted to be a guest on his podcast. And it was one of those moments where I thought, like, I never expected that to happen. You know, I did not reach out to him with the goal that maybe he would ask me. I had just really respected his work and his podcast because he's been around for so many years. And that was just one of those moments where I was like, oh my goodness, this is such a great outcome that I did not expect from hosting this event. Whenever I decided to create the Infopreneur Summit, I never thought that would happen. So I was really, really excited by that. And I think just honestly, how many different people that I reached out to that said yes were so excited to be on the summit that they'd heard of me before, but we never really talked. You know, we'd met online via Twitter or what have you, but we weren't really good business partners or anything. But they were so excited to be a part of this event. I was really genuinely taken aback and surprised at just how thrilled they were that this was getting put on. And I was also surprised that after I started promoting my summit, which I did, like I said, about a month before it went live, I had already chosen my speakers. We had already recorded the interviews. And the word was really getting out there about the summit. So many people were emailing me asking if they could be speakers. They were saying, oh, I have this really great business and I think that I would be good for your audience. And that was something I did not expect. I did not expect people to actually reach out to me and say, I want to be a part of this event. And it was kind of cool because I had to be very judicious in looking at their business and evaluate and say, you know, do they have some quality content that they could deliver to my audience that's missing? And a couple people I accepted, but a lot of people I said, no, thank you, maybe next year.
Mm-hmm. And that's so key what you said there is like, could they add value to people who are actually going to attend this? I think that's really valuable. So we spoke about sort of benefits and things you didn't expect. What were some of the challenges and how you went about dealing with those?
Yeah, well, I made a very silly decision to move during the middle of my summit preparations, and that was very silly of me. Don't do that, people, because when you move to a new apartment, you have to get new Wi-Fi, and the whole just Wi-Fi complications can be very difficult when you are trying to record interviews over the internet. So just doing the recordings, I would say, was honestly the biggest challenge. I mean, Wi-Fi aside, just, you know how it is, recording, whether it's audio, but especially video, can be very, very difficult because you can't always guarantee that the person on the other end that you are recording is going to have a really nice webcam, is going to have good Wi-Fi or internet speed, or that they are going to follow all of your instructions properly. So we were using Google Hangouts in order to record the interviews. And that actually was a free service, which is why I chose it. But I think in retrospect, one of the things I'm going to do next year is pay to use Zoom or something which is a little bit, you know, has better functionality. I think it just makes it easier for both people involved. So I would say that was one of the biggest challenges. Also, putting on the summit, so actually executing the summit the week that it's supposed to go live, you have to be sitting at your computer basically every hour of that entire week because people are going to be emailing you saying, I didn't get the links, or I never got the email, or this link isn't working, or, you know, why can't I see the interview? The video is not playing. And you have to explain to people, okay, well, you know, did you try this? Or, you know, what browser are you using? And you really have to communicate with these people quickly because the free content is only up for so long. So if you don't respond fast enough, they're not going to be able to see that free content. And then you lose a lot of credibility. And so you really have to be attentive to your audience during the summit. And I will have to say that was actually pretty exhausting.
Yeah, that would not have been a good week to go to Disneyland.
Yes, no, exactly. Exactly. That would definitely not have been.
Bailey, if there's people listening to this and they may be interested, do you think there are topics that might be too niche to put on a summit? Or is this like really for everyone?
Well, I think that a successful summit is one which really features every single guest speaker as an expert. And also each guest speaker is talking about something kind of different. So I think what's important is that whenever you're putting your summit together, choose an umbrella topic for your summit that ultimately has the ability for you to explore lots of subtopics underneath it. And so, for example, my summit was called the Infopreneur Summit. It was all about how to launch an infopreneur business. So that is a very succinct umbrella topic, but obviously there's so many things that go into launching a business: branding, revenue streams, press, etc. And so I was able to feature a guest speaker about every single one of those subtopics that would be valuable to my audience. And the reason that a summit like that is so successful is because it is not so narrow that speakers are talking about the same thing. If a guest on the summit, an attendee rather, if an attendee can listen to some speaker on the summit and get the information that they need, they're not going to listen to 3 or 4 more speakers about the exact same thing. And ultimately, that's a disservice to your guest speakers because you're not doing everything you can to position them as the experts and get the attendees to watch their content and ultimately download their freebies and things. Mm-hmm. So I would say that it's not really that there's any topic that's too niche. I think it just has to do with, what boundaries you decide to put on your niche and what umbrella topic you choose and what subtopics you're going to explore. If you have an entire summit all about, revenue streams or something like that, okay, well, exactly what subtopics are you going to cover in there that's going to be different? Are you going to have 5 people talking about self-publishing your own book? Or are you going to have 5 people talking about e-courses? I don't know. Maybe you need to back it up a little bit and go to like a slightly higher level,
Okay, cool. Gotcha. So then would you say that, there might be people listening and thinking, well, Bailey already had a business and all the tools and whatever. Do you think like anyone can do this, or do you need to have been doing certain things for a certain amount of time?
I am so glad you asked that question because it is a firm belief of mine that a virtual summit is actually a fantastic way to launch a business. It is a fantastic way for a beginner or a newbie in business to come in and to make some noise and to say, world, I am here. This is my business. This is what I am about. Look at my authority. I'm on the same level as all of these other guest speakers that I have. It's a really great way for a small financial investment to make a pretty decent return on your dollars so that you can actually get some startup capital to grow your business. It's a fantastic way to jumpstart your list. I'm a firm believer that a virtual summit can and should be done by beginners in business. Absolutely.
Nice. That's really cool to hear. And, we mentioned getting started. How then, if people have been listening to this, are like, cool, I want to grow my list. I've got an idea. What are the first steps for getting started?
Okay, well, I actually would suggest that they download my freebies. I can give you the URL to put in the show notes. I have something called a virtual summit set, which is a bunch of free materials, including an ebook, a planning worksheet, and also a guest speaker checklist that will basically explain to you what my process is for launching a virtual summit. And with that planning worksheet, it also makes it super simple for you to literally fill in the blanks and start putting the content for your summit together. So I think that's a really great first step in understanding exactly how the process of putting a summit together actually works. If you want to know the very first step of that process, it's actually to look at your logistics, which is to say, okay, well, when am I going to host my summit? How long is my summit going to be? And just pretty much looking at it like an event. If you're going to put on an event, an actual conference, the first thing you kind of have to decide is, okay, well, is the event going to be next week or is it going to be a year from now? And my entire process can be done. My entire process for launching a virtual summit can be completed in 90 days. So it's going to take you about 3 months from today in order for you to put your summit together.
And that's really not that long, right? If you think of the benefits, I mean, if anyone who's familiar with blogging and the online world and stuff, if you could tell someone like in 3 months, you'll have your first 1,000 subscribers, anybody would take that hands down. So that's really not bad.
Yeah, it's not that long of a period of time. And to give you some perspective in my own business, whenever I decide to launch a new high value online course, if you're going to pre-sell and do that course properly, it's going to take you 5 to 6 months to actually do that. That's how long it takes me. And so for you to be able to put a virtual summit on pretty much, all by yourself in 3 months, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah. Now, Bailey, obviously, one of the parts of hosting an Infopreneur Summit, or any type of summit for that matter, is you're going to have to, one of the biggest benefits we said was putting yourself on kind of a level playing field with the top influencers in your industry. So obviously, a part of that is you're going to have to reach out to those people. And if you're successful, speak to those people. So what tips do you have for contacting those high profile speakers when it might seem a little daunting or intimidating?
Great question. I think that the key is, first of all, to prime the relationship as much as possible. And so that means that you should go on Twitter, you should follow them, you should retweet some of their content. If you're on their email newsletter, which you should be replying to their email newsletter each week and saying things like, this was super helpful. I am, been a huge follower of your work for a really long time. Thanks so much for writing this post. It's about letting them know who you are. Then when you are ready to actually contact them about your summit, I think that it's really important for you to come across as a peer and a colleague and not just a raving fan of their work. You can be a fan of their work. You should definitely be. But to definitely position yourself as somebody who would love to collaborate with them in the summit rather than begging them to be on it and helping you out. So there's a difference in the way that you would approach somebody and the words that you might use whenever you're asking them about, the possibility of being on your summit. And also, of course, a little bit of flattery and in your email and letting them know, I really admire your work and I think you would be a really great fit for this. Your content is so valuable. I think saying things like that goes a really long way.
Yeah, so it's really like about relationships and just using social media to be social and not just looking at everyone's cat photos.
Yes, exactly.
Now, Bailey, we mentioned the freebies that we'll link up in the show notes, but do you also have something else that can help people looking to get started and put together an Infopreneur or any type of summit? I wonder if you could share some details about that with us.
Sure. Virtual Summit School, yeah? So Virtual Summit School is a program, an online course that I am putting together. It's launching on December 5th. And up until then, we have a really awesome pre-launch pricing that you guys will probably want to check out. But this program is basically teaching you the 12-step process that I've put together for launching a virtual summit. But more importantly, it's actually walking you through step by step every single thing that you need to do, from explaining to you how you can contact these influencers and get great results, to showing you the screencasts for using the technology to actually put your virtual summit together. And additionally, we've made it super simple for you because we have put into the course a ton of templates and scripts and worksheets. So for example, we give you outlines and templates for all of the different emails that you're going to need to send to the people that enroll in your summit or to the influencers that you want to ask to be in your summit. We explore all of the different technology options that you might want to use. We show you exactly how a virtual summit sales funnel is supposed to be set up. This is a course that is intended for beginners who really want their hands held as they're creating their virtual summit. They want to get it done in 90 days. They want to do it right and effectively. And they also don't want to spend a ton of money. There are some other programs out there, about virtual summits, but they will tell you, you need to spend a whole lot of money in order to invest in an appropriate brand for your summit and buy this technology. No, I did my summit without investing and buying in anything extra than I already had. And so, that is definitely a focus of the course as well, to make sure that you're maximizing the amount of revenue for the small amount of income that you put into your program. Additionally, one of the bonuses that you get with the Virtual Summit School course is a lifetime access to the membership site for the Infopreneur Summit. So you're going to get an all-access pass included with your membership into Virtual Summit School. So it practically pays for itself just because of that. So the benefit of that is that you get to see how I've designed my membership site, how I conduct my interviews so that you can do a successful summit as well. It's a really great program. I'm super excited for it. It all came out of the fact that so many people after my summit started contacting me saying, I think I really love to host a summit. I'm super excited about yours. Can I pick your brain? And I decided, you know what? I really need to create a program about this so this information can be accessible to everyone. So I'm super excited for it. I think it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, I'm super pumped about that. And I didn't even realize that you were throwing in the Infopreneur Summit's sort of membership area.
Yes.
So, I mean, to me, it sounds like a no-brainer. People get to walk hand in hand with you through creating their summits, and they also get sort of knowledge of how to create their infopreneur business. So that's super cool. And I know I can vouch for you. Like, I know we've chatted sort of behind the scenes, and you said you kind of did everything yourself and were down in the trenches. So you know how to put this together from the beginning. And another thing that I'll say is that, given the fact that you're throwing in all these templates and swipe copy and all that sort of stuff, someone could even do this in possibly shorter than 3 months if they've already got those relationships in place.
Yes. If you already have those relationships in place, it's possible that you can do it in, less than 3 months. That's true.
All right. So something else I'm really excited to share is we're going to be doing a webinar discussing with people how to actually put a summit together. And that, if I'm not mistaken, is on the 14th of November, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, so we'll have a link to that in the show notes so you guys can check out. And it's basically going to be Bailey and myself running through how to put together your summit. So make sure you check out the show notes for that. Bailey, I do want to be mindful of the time here, but before we sign out for this episode, I want to ask you 2 questions. The one which I've started asking guests, and I didn't ask you last time, is what is the biggest opportunity for quarterlifers today?
Oh, the biggest opportunity that you have is the possibility that you can work and travel at the same time. I mean, we have opportunities that are available to us that were not available to our parents and previous generations because of the internet. And I think that we need to recognize that, the way that we used to work in this country or around the world, just the cubicle lifestyle, the corporate lifestyle, there's nothing wrong with that, but that's not the only way to live. And I think that if people take a little bit of initiative, whether it's starting their own business or looking for remote work, you have an opportunity to use these 20 something years and these 30 something years of your life to, to get out there and to explore and to make an income at the same time. That's the biggest opportunity, I think.
Yeah, I love it. And obviously we touched on where people can get in touch with you if they want to follow your stuff, but I'll link up to all your social media channels in these show notes as well. Is there anything else you want to direct people to in this episode that we didn't mention last time? Other than virtual summit school.
Yeah, I think that we talked about a ton of stuff. Yeah, if you really want to learn more about me or you're interested more about infopreneurship in general, then just check out baileyrichert.com because links to everything that I do are there. But definitely check out the virtual summit school stuff. It's awesome, especially those freebies.
Yeah, I'm going to check those out myself. Bailey, the final question that I have for you, and I've tweaked it a little bit from our last interview because we touched on that last time. But what one small thing can listeners do this week to start their own online summit?
Oh, yeah. Oh, online summit. Yeah, exactly. I was going to say last time we talked about buying your domain. Yeah, I was really big into that.
And actually, I don't know if you've seen, but like people have been going crazy for that episode. And the one girl said to me, like, she listened to it and she just went and bought her domain straight away.
I saw that on Twitter. Cool. Yes. I know. I was so excited. I'm like, yes, this is awesome. Taking action and making real progress.
Yeah. And there's not just people listening, but they're actually like doing stuff about it. So that was cool.
I know. How exciting is that your podcast impacts people's lives so directly, right? Mm-hmm. But the smallest thing that they can do for their virtual summit, I would say start at the very beginning of the 12-step process. I have organized it in a way that it is chronological and that you should be following it in the steps that I have listed. And so I mentioned that the very first step was figuring out your logistics. So just look at your calendar. So just look at your calendar 3 months from now and pick out a week or a couple of days that you want to host your virtual summit and make a commitment and say, okay, well, between now and, these couple dates 3 months from now, I'm going to go ahead and do my summit. And the things I'll say about that are to be mindful of the holidays, first of all. So make sure that you're not hosting your summit on a day like Christmas, whenever everybody's going to be really preoccupied with other things, or the Super Bowl in America, when no one's going to be want to watch your free content because they have other things that they'd rather spend their time on. And the other thing I'll say about that is, if it's your first summit, you don't need to overwhelm yourself. Don't necessarily do a 7-day summit. If you're just starting out, a 4-day summit is totally fine. Maybe do Monday to Thursday or something like that. But that's the very first thing you can do is pick out your dates and make a commitment.
Cool. I love it. Bailey Richert, thank you so much for coming back on the Quarter Life Comeback podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So there you have it, guys and girls. That wraps up this week's episode of the Quarter Life Comeback podcast, episode 37. And thanks once again to Bailey Richert for coming on and hanging out with us one more time. A lot of fun, just like episode 25. Now, if you enjoyed this and you know someone who would also like to put on a virtual summit, please share it around and shoot me a tweet at Brian Tier. Let me know what your biggest takeaway was. For me, I'm not going to share a takeaway, but I just want to remind you one more time that Bailey and I are going to be putting on a webinar next week, the 14th of November, where Bailey's going to share exactly how to get started putting on your own virtual summit. And we're going to share a whole lot of other goodies with you. So make sure to check that out, and you can register at briantier.com/webinar. It's going to be a lot of fun. Now, you can get the links and resources we mentioned in this episode at briantier.com/037. And until next week, keep creating your quarter life comeback.
Thanks for listening to the Quarter Life Comeback. Get started today by visiting briantier.com.